In this video, we're going to look at some shuffling techniques. So pretty much everybody has seen a tarot card reader do the typical shuffle, which is the overhand shuffle. There's a kind of cascading effect with the cards, and basically it brings sections of the cards from the top towards the bottom underneath. And so if you can see here, that basically this technique allows for some section of cards to move and filter into the deck in the new form. So basically bringing them from one direction to the other. This particular technique, notice that if you don't think about this, then what happens is all the cards stay the same direction. If sometimes you'll see the tarot card readers, they'll flip part of the deck and then they'll do that cascading overhand shuffle. And so what this video wants to point out is that there's some things we want to be aware of with this. So for instance, we want to basically see, I've got some cards out here for the order, and what we want to do is notice that I've sorted these in the major arcana from 0 on up. And so what happens is they're all upright, and I'm going to turn around and demonstrate. So if I let them slide again, here I'm letting some section of the card slide. I'm making that transition from one to the other, and once I'm done, turn it around and I see the same order. Okay, but of course the Fool's on top here, and then I consider to do that again, and I let the card slide, so I get those little sections on top, and when I turn it around, I've got the same order, just the opposite direction. The Fool's on the bottom now. And so what happens if you do this twice, the Fool's on top again. Then, excuse me, if you take half the deck and you flip it, then proceed to do the waterfall effect, and you get those cards flipping into the new order. What happens is you'll turn it around and you'll notice that, oh look, there's 3 of them that have flipped around. And then you do the same thing where you say, okay, I'm going to take half the deck and I'm going to flip them. Then you do the waterfall effect again, and what happens is you turn it over and oh look, they're all the same direction again. And so when doing that waterfall type of overhand shuffle, you have to be careful to make sure that you are able to get the cards in the right direction. Now, when this happens with a larger deck, what happens is those cards fall off and you end up getting some number of cards, and then you get another number of cards. And so what happens is there's a slight variance that happens. So there's a few cards that change each time you do this. And with those cards that change each time, then what happens is we get that point in the center, that crossover between the two groups, that we get a card or two that changes. But the overall structure still kind of remains the same. And so in order to break that up a little bit, you kind of have to work on making sure the cards get a transition that's outside of the standard way that you would do it. So in other words, if you're always splitting the deck in half, you're going to have to split the deck differently. But this particular technique is also very gentle on the cards. And so what happens is you can hold the cards lightly and you let the cards fall into the right location. Now, by doing this, what happens is you're not stressing the cards. And so people tend to like this technique because it makes their cards last longer. If you take a look at these, I'm not sure if it shows up very well on the camera, but the edges are starting to wear. I've used this deck enough to show that it's actually starting to wear a little bit. But that's okay, because I tend to, rather than using this technique, I'll use this technique when I'm in the middle of something. If I have to draw another card, I'm not really going to reshuffle the entire deck. I just want to reposition them. It's as if I've just cut the deck 5 or 6 times. Anyway, the key thing here to notice is that order is usually maintained here, so we want to make sure that we flip the cards. And if you do, as you do this, you have to make sure you flip them enough times that it randomly distributes how that flip occurs, so that you don't get the cards all lining up in the same order again. And when you're doing this, you have to make sure that the sections of cards that you flip have to be different sizes to give you that random feel. Or else, you know, it's really no big deal. It's just the overhand technique that I see lots of people using that um, I tend to like to see it where you get, I want to see uh, more of the cards filtering faster. Anyway, that's just a little brief introduction to the overhand shuffle.